So I'm creating a new document, Mock 1. In Photoshop, if I press, let me work at 50%. If I press Ctrl R, I turn my rulers on. Now I'm planning my layout, I'm planning my colors, I'm planning my fonts, I'm planning a lot of things. Now, Yutaka, Lewis, and Declan decided to have a car information website. So I just Googled up car magazines to see what kind of imagery magazines use. Now, cars have been around for a few decades. Okay, I think the first engine came out probably in the 1800s. Not sure, but they've been around for a long time. So have car magazines been. So this gives me an idea of somebody who's interested in cars, what they're used to looking at. I also noticed, apart from always having a car at an angle, and you can see that, bang, almost a necessity, car at an angle, car at an angle, you know, the 3D perspective view, if you want to call it. See this? Apart from that, they often have a bikini clad model. Now, because I have made it very clear that the content has to be G rating, you can skip that off, okay? Yutaka, Lewis, and Declan. But you still get a very clear idea of what this kind of audience is used to seeing. I see a lot of clutter. Now I'm going to do a blend. That's my approach, at least. I'm thinking, oh, they want clutter, but in a website which gives information, if you clutter it with images, it won't work. So I'm thinking, obviously, this is just the cover, right? A cluttered cover. Inside pages, if I Google inside page, I'm not sure if I get something. I'm taking a big risk searching for something while the projector is on. You never know what comes up. Okay, good. That's fine. But what I want to do is, I want to create something which is clean. I'm just going to Google up some images. Now for my content, what I would do is, I've got a massive collection of Lego cars and car models. I would put them on a white tabletop with a white curtain and pose them, and I would just shoot them with my camera, just so that I can get original content. But if you take content, always acknowledge it, no problem. Right now I'll see if I can find some royalty-free images. So I can go to search tools, go to usage rights, and go to label for reuse. And that's enough. See, that's the classic. You will always get the classic photographs. People who photograph cars always photograph in a particular way. Even if you were to do that for your ad on car sales, you'd automatically do it this way, because that's the best view of the car. So let's say I've gone and conned Audi into giving me some money to use an Audi. You know how Audi pays Bond movies to be in the movie. So car companies, they bid to try and be in a nice movie. So I'm just going to try and use one of these cars. If it loads. Now you see this blur effect. It's a pretty cute effect. You can actually get it on any, so even on this image, I'll show you that effect in Photoshop. So suppose you have a car like this and you want to use it without really having much to do about with the rest. What you can do is make a very loose selection. Okay, make a very, very loose selection. Go to select and feather it. You can actually just modify feather. Feather will make that selection soft. See, when I cut it, it gives me a soft edge. And I paste it on a new layer. Actually, I'll just copy it and paste it on a new layer. The difference is if I don't feather it, if I don't feather something, I get a sharp edge. You see that sharp edge? But now I've got something soft. You see the soft edge? And now I want to blur everything else or make it out of focus. So I can just go filter. I can do a lot of things. I can put a Gaussian blur on everything. And when I put this back with a soft edge, it should be a bit more soft. No problem, it's not soft. I can come to the top layer, add a mask. In a mask, what happens? Anything which is black is transparent. So I'm going to paint with black. And you can see I can sort of get that perfect. I can soften it. I can take the background and I can say filter blur. I can do things like motion blur. So motion blur allows me to sort of show as if this car is traveling in speed. You can see that. But because it's on a turning, I might do something else. Filter, blur. I can do things like a radial blur. So somewhere from here, blur it a bit more. You see, I get that kind of a blur. I can also sort of blur it manually. And I'm going to come here, put a mask, and try and sort of so you can do a lot of these things. I'm just going to stick with I might stick with this one, the one that I already got from here. Now, before I start, one thing I do is I use the rulers, Control R. I use Control R and I mark out my grid. These units can be set in various ways. If I right click on it, pixels, inches. So I'm going to have a banner of roughly, I'll go 200. I might leave some place on the right hand side for classified ads. I don't know, it's a car website, car information. Now, when you put something on the web, you really are thinking of revenue as well. Is there a revenue model? Can I sort of go and get an affiliate membership from carsales.com.au and put their ad on my site so that if somebody clicks and goes to the site, you get money from click traffic? So there are a lot of revenue models. They're known as affiliate programs. So those of you who are interested, do look up affiliate marketing. You can sign up to be an affiliate. And I know people who have got 120 websites and all they do is just collect click traffic and send it towards the big sites like booking.com or the car rental sites. And they make a lot of money by accumulating traffic and sending it there. It used to be a very popular revenue stream on the web, affiliate marketing. So I'm just making my guides. So this is what I have for content. I would like to introduce you to something called the rule of thirds. The rule of thirds is a very popular concept in photography, in layout. Some of you must have heard it, done photography courses, design courses, graphic design courses. It's a nice time to introduce everybody to this. So those of you who haven't heard it can be introduced to this. Rule of thirds really says that if you divide your layout or your vision or your viewfinder into thirds, 3 horizontal and 3 vertical, 3 by 3 grid, then the most interesting points are these. You see the circles here. These circles are the most interesting points, and anything that lies on the third. So you can see this. Anything that lies on the third. Quite often we take photographs of a sky, of a lake, and this tip will be very useful whenever you pull out your camera to take a photo and there's a horizon. Doesn't matter whether it's a land scenery or scenery depicting water. If there's a horizon, the rule of aesthetics states, I mean, there's no rule, you can always break rules. But the rule of aesthetics, according to the rule of third, says that the horizon should sit on this third or on the top third. So if the landscape is more interesting and the sky is less interesting, the horizon is on the top third, more landscape. If the sky is more interesting, then more sky. And you can see now this one has not gone exactly, but it is still more or less 2/3 for the sky, 1/3 for the water. Okay? But that's the rule of thumb. This also is this spiral, the Fibonacci spiral, also comes from the rule of thirds being applied successively. So this gives you an idea of the way you should put a grid. Now within this content area, I'm going to apply a rule of thirds. 1/3 for 1/3 and 2/3. So I've got 1/3 and 2/3. So just so that you know how I'm going about thinking this. So this line is not based on the whole thing, but only on this left side. So let me start. The brightest cars are red, yellow. Ferraris are always red. And I'm just thinking out aloud how I'm thinking, how I go about making a design. So, and as a beginner course, these tips will be really useful. Now you guys haven't done a graphic design course before, but you are doing web authoring, and these tips are going to be very useful to you. So I've just taken a nice bright red. I might change as I go if I don't like it, but I'm just thinking out loud. So I go here, make a new layer. Edit fill, foreground color. Now control and semicolon will hide these guidelines. I'm going to see how I can incorporate this. I don't know. I'm not sure yet. I'm going to press Ctrl T and scale this up a bit. Because yeah, car site, bigger banner, no problem. Now one thing I'm going to do is I'm going to chop off the excess pixels. When you crop photographs, there's a very popular rule. Crop the head but never the chin. It looks funny if you crop the chin when you make a close-up. But it doesn't look funny if you shave off a bit of the head, if you go close-up. And those of you who sit at home and watch those soaps, Young and the Restless, Bold and the Beautiful, where you have a whole cast of good-looking men and women, no big sets, and the cameras are only locked here. Next time, pay attention. You will see the camera goes close. This gets shaved off, but never the chin. So when I decided to chop a bit of the car, I thought, no, I can't sort of chop the bottom, but I can sort of take off a bit of the head. And you can see there's a lot of glamour here. I don't want to chop anything from there. So I'm applying the same rule, but that rule doesn't apply to cars, by the way. But that was just my thought. Now I need to blend this. So I'm going to use a mask. In a mask, anything which is black is transparent. I'm using a very big brush, a very big soft brush. And you can see now my sharp edge is gone. My sharp edge is gone, And now I realize my red is not really a good color unless my car here was red. No problem. This gives me an opportunity to show you how to shift colors. If I go to image, adjustment, hue saturation, I can shift the hue. Now if you go home and watch this video, you will find many of these techniques useful, especially if you have never done them before. So I've shifted the hue towards blue. And then I can also shift the lightness and the saturation. So the saturation is here. Do I want it less blue or do I want it more blue? Do I want it more green? Maybe I can go a bit towards the green. Blue and green looks good because the scene in the car has got a bit of blue, a bit of green. Okay, happy with that. Now, it's not Photoshop that I'm really keen to teach you. I'm really keen to teach you the thought process. Okay? As I said, given that you haven't done graphic design, some of you have probably done that. Some of you, this is a second diploma. Now I'm going to add text. So I make a new layer. What was your company? CYL Motorway?
It was DYL.
DYL. So I've got DYL, what? Car info.
Yeah.
Car info. A simple rule I followed since the days before I did graphic design. I just pressed Control T to scale it, by the way. So that was Control T and scale. No big deal. I'm going to make this in 3 types. A simple rule I followed since early days was if there are 2 words, and actually I'll show this to you. If there are more than 2 words, each of the words should be a different color for readability, for the sake of readability. The color should be in contrast to the background. So it shouldn't be the same color as the background because you can't see it, of course. So there has to be some contrast. Different color, different size, car info is together, so I'm going to leave it as car info. Different color, different size. Different style, or all of the above. You can see I'm going to make this one bold, semi-bold italic. Bold italic. So different color, different size, dot not needed, understood, just to make it readable. So DIY, DYL and car info, 2 different parts, easy to read. The words are distinguished. Also the sizes are different, or put a different font as well. One serif, one non-serif. So I'm going to go here. I'm going to go to character. I'm going to type Georgia bold italic. Okay. And if they are too different, no problem. You can have them in different lines. I can have them right aligned, can I? I'm just trying it, not too sure. It might work. Okay, happy with that. Now normally I can apply a stroke to this, but I'm just going to change the fonts here as well to something else, Futura condensed extra bold. So DYL car info. Under effects, now effect is a layer effect, layer style. All of these things, the layer style, are found here. Same things. Every layer can have a layer style, which means for anything on this layer, I can say apply a stroke, which means it will go and see where the pixels are, and around the pixels it will apply a stroke. So that's the stroke, and the stroke is happening inside. I can say the stroke should happen outside. Yeah, and I can have the change the thickness of the stroke and so on. But what I do is I like to apply a shadow to the stroke itself. So I'll make a new layer. I press Control and click on this text. That selects all of the text. And on the new layer, I go and say Edit, Stroke, 5 pixel outside, and I'll give it a darkish color. Now to this stroke, I'm going to add a drop shadow. I could have added an inner shadow, but I prefer this. A very subtle drop shadow. If I turn it on and off, you can see the difference there. Yeah. Let's increase the opacity a bit. I also like to add some textures. So I'm just going to add a single line here. Edit, fill, white. Now what I've done is I've gone to the move tool and I'm pressing the Alt key. I am pressing the Alt key. And I've created multiple copies of it. Now if I select all of these and press the Alt key, you can see my cursor changes to a copy. See that? So if I press Alt and if I press Shift now, I can copy. There are much better ways of doing this. This is a very old-fashioned way of doing stuff. I still stick with it. So I've just added some texture there. I'm going to make another layer mask. I don't want a lot of this texture. I'm going to just sort of get my car clear and probably just get DY car info clear. Okay, so I've got a texture apart from the car and DYL car info. That's enough. I've done too much of funkiness here. Now you have the page open. I'm going to try and see how I can make the links. Now I have in mind something here. You know how the links don't occupy the entire horizontal line. So I have something in mind for that. Because they're cars, I was just thinking. How many links do you have, Yutaka? How many page links do you have? Okay, 4? I'll just use this slightly rounded rectangle, jelly bean kind of shape. And you can change it when you do the CSS finally, by all means, have something different. So when I click a shape, there are some options, pixels. Now what I want is actually a shape. So I'm going to say shape. And I'll leave that dark color there, that's okay. I'll go pixels. I'm going to delete that. I'm making a new layer. When I choose the rounded rectangle, I'm choosing pixels. I've got this. Control A selects everything. V is ready to move, and when I press Alt, I get a copy. Now the smart guys automatically keep it horizontal for me. I haven't accurately measured the distance, which I should. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Just trying to get the gaps right. When you do it with code, it's automatically going to give it to you right. You can keep on styling it. So I've got this. I've got my 4 links. Just scale them down a bit. What were the links, Yutaka? So you had turbo, bear in mind what I'm seeing is 50%. So my actual size is this, okay? That's my actual size. And the choice of fonts in your design, in this case, depending on what kind of cars you are after, muscle cars, luxury cars, the choice of font also has to be relevant to that design. Now, probably this would have been more suitable for a muscle car, but Volkswagen is tough enough. Okay, I'll leave it at that. What were the other page links you had? Engines. Now you can see here I've used a label for reuse image, so no problem. Next. Gearbox. 2 words. Will gear suffice, Lewis? Yeah, just for the sake of design. All of these things matter. Your links, some have 2 words, some have 1. What else? We probably need one more. Contact us for more info. What if I have some questions, Lewis, about some cars? So you should have some more links in your page, like contact. Okay. Now, I'm just going to put a small single stroke. Just going to put a small. Just going to put a line there. Edit. Just going to make it a bit thick. All I did was I just copied it. I have something in mind. I need an arrow. So I've gone to the line tool. I'm going to say start, and I'm just going to go 200% by 200%. Let me get a 4 pixel arrow. Okay. Let me get a 10 pixel arrow. So I'm just trying to get one of these arrows, okay? Oops, I need to have the arrow on a separate layer. I select it, choose the move tool, press my alt key and my shift key, and then I let go of the alt but keep the shift key pressed. So I've just got something like this. I'm going to use layer mask. I'm going to use my brush and I'm just going to fade out the arrows. See that? Just need to fade the arrows out a bit. Okay, so that's okay. Probably I needed some more gap. What was that? That was a Golf, was it? You would know this. You know your cars. What is it?
No, it's definitely these cars. I don't know much.
Okay, there you go. That's what I was after. I'm going to take one of these. I just need to go and check for reuse, label for reuse. So just make sure you do that. Right now I'm just going to use this. I'm going to use a very tiny thumbnail of it. And I had this in mind because I know whenever I put links, there's always excessive space. You can't always use up the entire nav bar, so to speak. So when I was thinking cars, I thought, what will I do with that? So I came up with this, and I have used this many times before. I'm just going to use a mask and rub out all of the remaining stuff around this car. It's faded, and that's okay with me. It's going at a high speed. I can make a copy of it. And the bottom one, you see I've got a copy, one on top, one below. The bottom one, I'm going to put a blur, motion blur. Yeah, you see that? It gives it a bit of motion. And the top one, I'm just going to move it a bit ahead. Oh. Or the bottom one, I'll move it a bit behind. Top one, a bit ahead. I get a bit of a zoom. The bottom one, actually, what I should have done was I should have gone filter, noise, added some noise on it. You see that noise? When you add some noise and then you put a blur, motion blur, you get better streaks. You get better streaks if you add some noise because those dots get stretched out. And you can, hopefully you can see how I use duplication. I duplicate a layer, blur one, even DIY car info. Quite often in the past I would have clients saying, oh, this is looking a bit empty. And I would do this. I would duplicate DYL car info. Stretch it out. And every layer has got a mode, how it behaves with the bottom mode. And I would just say darken or probably overlay. Overlay used to be my favorite. Just overlay and reduce the opacity. So you can see that part has now got filled up. With the same thing, I've just repeated it to just make it look. So DYL car info hits you again subtly in the background. So it doesn't look empty. And you will see this in many movie titles. The movie title in front and then the same title is scrolling behind. Observe titles. You will see these design principles everywhere. Okay. So that's sort of my header. The video is getting long, so I'm going to cut it here and start recording again.